We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. We speak today because something remarkable is happening in America. The man who branded himself untouchable, unstoppable, inevitable, is finally facing something. He cannot bully Sue or spin away. Donald Trump is getting the karma he deserves as he collapses politically and morally in Michigan and across this nation. Let's begin with the numbers, because numbers do not care about ego. In Texas, Donald Trump's approval rating now sits at a net negative 17.2%. In Michigan, the state he desperately needs to project strength in, he is net negative 15.8%. In Florida, once treated as his personal kingdom, he is net negative 7.5%. These are not media inventions. These are aggregated polling realities. According to the Real Clear Politics average, when you combine all polls, including those from far-right outlets that historically inflate his numbers, Trump's approval is just 42%, while his disapproval stands at 55.5%. That is not strength. That is collapse, historically low. The most detested president at this stage of a presidency in modern political measurement. And then look at the early voting data in Texas primaries. Democrats currently hold nearly a 50-0-0-0 vote advantage in ballots cast compared to Republicans. That is not supposed to happen in Texas. If MAGA dominance were real, analysts are already describing presidential-level Democratic turnout patterns emerging in 2026. Cycle modeling. Even MAGA influencers see it. Jack Posobiec is publicly panicking, warning his audience about a building blue wave. When your own propagandists are nervous, you know the ground is shifting. Look at North Carolina. In the Senate race, former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is polling at 50%. Leading MAGA-aligned candidate Mark Robinson, Ali Whatley, 50 to 40%. A double-digit margin in a battleground. In an environment Trump claims he controls, he does not control it. Then there is the DoGV poll asking a simple question: who did a better job as president, Barack Obama or Donald Trump? Barack Obama leads 55% to 37%. That margin is devastating, because Trump's brand depends on the myth that history will vindicate him. Instead, history is already judging him harshly. But do not take our word for it. Listen to the right-wing voices who once defended him. Libertarian commentator Dave Smith, who produced an entire video in 2024 declaring he would vote for Trump. Now
Donald Trump's approval ratings have been crashing, and it's largely a reflection of his failure as president. I mean, I just think that's kind of obvious.
Joe Rogan, once friendly terrain for Trump narratives, now sounds overwhelmed, describing non-stop madness, fears of war with Iran, confusion about government secrecy, and escalating chaos. Benny Johnson, a MAGA loyalist of the highest order, admitted on Sean Spicer's show that the handling of the Epstein file releases caused unnecessary political damage and was not the transparency moment it should have been. When sycophants start conceding mismanagement, the facade is cracking. Then comes Tim Dillon, blunt and unsparing. We're not doing great, he says. $40 trillion in debt, on the verge of potential major war with Iran. That is not a democratic criticism. That is coming from right-wing podcasters speaking to right-wing audiences. The illusion of smooth sailing has dissolved, and then we witnessed something even darker. FBI Director Kash Patel, formerly a right-wing podcaster, appeared alongside former Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, also a former podcaster, turned official, turned podcaster, again. They described so-called Level 10 and Level 11 decisions at the highest levels of government. Decisions so difficult that they allegedly involved choosing between terrible and worse options. Context matters. They were discussing the Epstein files. They were effectively lamenting how hard it is to manage cover-up level decisions around a pedophile trafficking network scandal. Bongino described escalating decisions that ultimately reached the president's desk. Patel defended the necessity of hard choices made collectively. This was not parody. This was a public conversation revealing how normalized crisis management of moral catastrophe has become within Trump-aligned power structures. Meanwhile, over 50 terabytes of Epstein-related materials remain unreleased, according to Justice Department disclosures and court reporting. Attorney General Pam Bondi faced intense questioning before the House Judiciary Committee and refused to directly engage with survivors present. Trump declared himself vindicated. Vindicated from what? The files that have been released so far include flight logs, contact lists, and documented associations with Jeffrey Epstein, who died in federal custody in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Trump publicly expressed sympathy for Prince Andrew. Sympathy, not outrage for victims. Sympathy for elite embarrassment. Howard Lutnick publicly claimed he met Epstein only once and was disgusted, yet documents show deeper association. Trump dismissed concerns by saying, as far as he knew, Lutnick only brought his children to Epstein's island. That statement alone is chilling. Why would anyone bring their children to a property connected to trafficking allegations? After acknowledging awareness of misconduct, these are not partisan questions. They are moral ones. Now bring this home to Michigan, because this is where the karma becomes visible. Michigan's 10th congressional district, encompassing Macomb and parts of Oakland County, has been represented by MAGA-aligned figures, including John James, who's now running for governor, leaving the seat open. Lisa McClain previously represented the district and remains aligned with Trump's most extreme positions. These lawmakers supported Trump's global tariff regime, which was struck down by the Supreme Court after legal challenges argued he exceeded statutory authority. The tariffs increased input costs for manufacturers and consumer prices across states like Michigan that depend heavily on auto manufacturing supply chains. Trump attacked the Gordie Howe International Bridge, project linking Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Ontario. The bridge represents billions in cross-border trade facilitation. It was designed to strengthen manufacturing supply chains between the United States and Canada, one of America's closest allies. Shutting it down or destabilizing trade relations through erratic tariffs harms Michigan workers, auto workers, small businesses, families already navigating inflation and global competition. Enter Christina Hines, a former sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor for 10 years in southeast Michigan, now running for Congress in the 10th District. Born in Macomb County, mother of 3, wife and sister of auto workers. She argues that working families were abandoned politically,
working
creating
families.
space
And we are
for Trump's
community
rhetoric
of
to
folks
sweep in
that,
promising
really just want to
representation that
provide
never
a better life
materialized.
for
She points
John
out
James
that
has
John
not brought
James
anything back to
delivered
this
little
district to
tangible
help the
benefit
working
back to the
families here.
district.
And so
She speaks of
I
grocery
think that as
bills,
a
healthcare
mom
access,
of 3 little
jobs,
kids and,
practical realities,
someone that actually has
her prosecutorial background matters in this moment. She handled human trafficking cases. She listened to survivors. She knocked thousands of doors and encountered women who broke down in tears upon hearing her mention sexual assault prosecution, because 1 in 4 women experience sexual assault or abuse in their lifetime, according to CDC data. For these communities, the Epstein revelations are not abstract scandal. They are personal trauma colliding with perceived elite protection. Hines
accountability
argues that accountability
in and of itself can't depend on whether someone is powerful or wealthy or politically connected. It shouldn't depend on whether someone's a Republican or a Democrat. Whoever has committed
that message resonates in Macomb and Oakland counties, areas with large working-class populations who value stability and normalcy over spectacle and chaos. And here is the deeper truth. Trump's collapse is not only about polling numbers. It is about erosion of moral authority. It is about chaos fatigue. It is about voters watching right-wing podcasters question leadership, watching FBI officials discuss impossible cover-up decisions, watching tariffs spike costs, watching healthcare threatened, watching infrastructure politicized, watching sympathy extended to elites rather than survivors. Karma is not mystical. It is cumulative consequence. It is when every insult, every reckless policy, every corruption allegation, every ignored warning aggregates into measurable decline, net negative approval across battleground states. Polls showing preference for Obama over Trump by 18 points. Early voting surges favoring Democrats. Senate races slipping away. Open house seats vulnerable. Michigan turning restless. Trump built a political brand on dominance. But dominance requires loyalty. And loyalty erodes when outcomes deteriorate. When economic anxiety persists. When wars loom. When debt balloons to $40 trillion. When promised transparency turns into withheld terabytes of files. When even MAGA commentators admit mistakes. Michigan is symbolic because it represents working America, manufacturing America, union households, parents juggling grocery prices and health care bills. When those voters begin to recoil from chaos and demand accountability, the electoral map shifts. A 10th district flip contributes to flipping the U.S. House. Flipping the House constrains executive overreach. Constraints restore balance. Balance restores democracy. Trump mocked institutions. He tested legal limits with unilateral tariff regimes. The Supreme Court struck them down. He attacks infrastructure that benefits his own voters. He claims vindication amid scandal. He expresses sympathy for disgraced royalty rather than abused minors. He presides over approval ratings at historic lows. That is not strength. That is unraveling. We are anonymous. We do not celebrate suffering. But we recognize accountability. And what you are witnessing in Michigan and across America is accountability unfolding in real time. Karma is voters connecting dots. Karma is working families demanding representation instead of spectacle. Karma is right-wing allies admitting failure. Karma is polling data reflecting exhaustion. Karma is democracy correcting course. If you believe in accountability over cults, truth over propaganda, survivors over elites, then act. Register, vote, organize, support candidates who prioritize working families and transparency. Demand full release of Epstein-related documents. Demand oversight. Demand lawful trade policy that strengthens workers instead of destabilizing them. Trump's collapse in Michigan is not inevitable. It is participatory. It requires citizens. It requires vigilance. It requires you. We are anonymous. We are watching, and the era of consequence has begun.